Unique New York, unique New York. You know you need unique New York. Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather.
Decent category.
Whether the weather is cold or whether the weather is hot, we'll be together, whatever the weather, whether you like it or not. Reserve seating starts right now. So Rob, before we got rolling, we were talking about the Eddie Izzard show that you saw, and she was great. So
Yes.
I have a question for you. What is the best stand-up comedy show you've seen live in person?
The best one I've seen, I think, was probably Christopher Titus. Christopher
Mhm.
Titus was one of my favorites for a long time because I saw him a couple years ago. In terms of what I've seen live, that was probably my favorite one.
I've seen Chris Rock twice.
Nice.
Once was in 2004 when I was in college in Indianapolis, and there was like a Will Smith joke in there, and it's sort of like,
Oh,
wow, like knowing what we know now. Because he said, "How many of you like rap music?" And like, this is in Indianapolis, so like a lot of people raise their hands, and he goes, "Put your hands down if it's just Will Smith," and like half the crowd lowered their hands. The most surprising best one and one of the reasons why I love this guy so much as an entertainer is Sinbad, because I went with my sister just kind of on a lark because she got free tickets. And it was at the Chicago Theater. And he goes out there and he goes, "What do you guys want to talk about?" And then people will just like yell stuff out. And he did like a 2.5 hour stand up comedy show. And it was always funny. It never felt like he didn't know where it was going. He just could build material out of nothing. And it was like as polished as if he had written the whole thing. It was amazing.
so today we're going to talk about reviews. We're looking back at our storied careers as writers and podcasters and video people, and looking at some reviews that we've done in the past that maybe we would take a second look at. Maybe I was too nice to this or too hard on this, or I have actually I wrote down a whole bunch of notes for this stuff because I sort of went back and looked at more or less everything that we've done, and including me, like everything I've written, and kind of looked at, like, I've got a couple different categories for things I want to talk about. So we'll get into it. But I think it's a fun thing to do because and for folks out there, a lot of folks who are watching this are also writers and stuff like that, or obsessives, and we watch a lot of stuff. We write a lot of stuff. As Patrick always says, the website is this sort of beast that needs to eat every day. Like, we need to keep producing things for it. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
draining. You and I have times where, we can't get the schedule together, or we're both just like, I don't feel like doing this, or I don't have anything to write about, or whatever. Um, and so there's a lot of stuff in the archives. There's a lot of stuff in there, and it goes back years. We're lucky enough
Mm.
that our site has been around, for a long time. And I just think there's a ton of stuff, and we've grown and changed as people. And I think it'd just be fun to look at some of the things that we've done and say, do I still feel that way, or do I feel differently about it? So more just a conversation, not just about just looking back at stuff that we've done.
All right. So my first one of review redo is this is for reserve seating. These were two written columns that we did over the years because we started writing as a pair in 2017, and then we moved to video around 2021 at the beginning of October. So we're coming right at the 2 year anniversary of that. But two of the written columns that we did were reviews of Bruce Willis direct to video movies. One was Airstrike and one was Breach. And we wrote them to goof on him. And that was, if we're being honest, that was the impetus. And there's really no way we could have known for sure what was going on with him. But now that hindsight's 2020, we should have figured it out. Like, you could see that just something was off about him,
Yeah.
and we just chalked it up to laziness or things like that. And it's something that I feel bad about. I mean, luckily, I don't think anybody goes back and reads that deep in the archive, but just as a person, I feel bad about it. And he's somebody that gave us decades of entertainment for, and what we did basically was to kind of mock him and laugh at him. And it sucks when stuff like that happens and you kind of just forget your history with a performer, or just even in your actual life, like with the person that you interact with, where it's like, 99% of your interactions with that person are positive, but then recency bias and you go at them. So I do really regret those reviews. And this is maybe my advice to people who are younger than us, is whatever you make fun of or mock could very easily turn around and affect you later. So like, be very careful with when you do that, because I believe in karma a lot. I don't like study it or anything like that, but just as a principle, I believe in that, and I think that you'd be best to remember that too sometimes.
So I made categories of things. I went through, as I said a minute ago, I went through the entire archive, not only of reserve seating, but everything I've written too for the site. And I want to start with a reserve seating that I think we were too hard on. There's a movie I think we were too hard on, and that's the Lego Batman movie.
Okay.
The Lego Batman movie is a movie I have since watched a couple times since we reviewed it.
Mm,
I think that movie's a lot stronger than we gave it credit for. And so I'm just speaking for myself here. I'm not, obviously, we didn't talk about this beforehand.
yeah.
But just for me, I look at that now and I say, maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace for it or whatever it was. But the Lego Batman movie is really fun, and it's not the Lego movie. It's not, but there's lots of really cool stuff in there. And I in particular, I think I was hard on it in a way that it didn't deserve.
You're a big Batman fan. I don't regret anything I said about any of the Lego movies. It kind of coincides for me, like also with what's going on with like Spider-Verse and Turtles and stuff like that, where just everything is kind of from a hipster bent.
Mhm.
And I miss the sincerity of it. Even though these movies are kind of sincere, I think that they sort of act sincere in air quotes, and sort of are aloof in their emotional aspects,
Sure.
even when they're trying to be. So, yeah, good pick. I don't regret anything I said. So we started this show in 2017, or this series, and looking back at the beginning, I want to goof on us a little bit for it's more my it was my idea at the beginning of like, let's make this as close to like Siskel and Ebert as possible, which A is ridiculous for like a written column, because it doesn't really come alive that way unless you're like using a vivid imagination. Two, we were trying to introduce like clips in the middle of columns, which was stupid, and I'm glad that we jettisoned pretty early. And then three, I we I kind of baked in, at least at the beginning, where like we should like go at each other and like we should be antagonistic and stuff.
Yeah.
And we realized really quickly that we liked each other a lot, even though we liked each other beforehand, but we didn't really work together all that much. But we liked each other so much, and it was just like, why are we doing that? So that went away pretty quickly.
The written column, not to say that it wasn't working. And if you're an OG, if you remember reserve seating,
Mm,
from years ago when we were writing it, it was fun to do. It was really cool. It was Adam's idea, and it was like, look, Adam, you sent me an email or a text or something. You were just like, hey, like, I like the way you write. I think we're totally opposite sometimes when it comes to the way we approach movies, but I think we complement each other really well. So let's do this thing. And what I remember most about the days when we were writing this was always the sort of passing back and forth of the like, okay, I added my part. Now it's your turn. I added my part. Now it's your turn. And which
yeah.
is fine because that's how you collaborate on something. And that's how we wrote it. If you go back and look at those reserve seatings, it's me, then it's you, and then it's me, then it's you. And that would be over the course of like 3 days or 5 days, over the course of like a week. I would add a paragraph, then you would add a paragraph. And I so prefer this.
Yeah, me too.
Not only just because we're friends who live miles and miles away from each other and we get to actually talk and see each other and hang out a little
Mm,
bit. It's just so much better in terms of, I think, for the audience, in terms of getting a sense of our sort of uncut kind of, not that it's not uncut because I edited it, but like our sort of more sincere, reactions to things. And I think this is, whereas I think generally I'm better in print as a critic, I have so much more fun doing this on video because I just think that the way we approach it together is so much more conducive to this format. So I'm really glad we made this pivot.
and I don't mean this in any type of like negative way. It has to be for me first, in
Yeah.
terms of like, do I want to write this, or do I want to talk about this, or do I want to do a video on this? and then trust that whoever is there listening or watching, and thank you for doing so, or reading, will follow along. But at the end of the day, I can't chase an imaginary audience that I don't know if they're into it. Like I need to service, like, is this something that I want to spend 30 minutes on or an hour on after I watch this movie? So
Yeah.
as going back to the stand-up thing, one piece of advice I heard once from Chris Rock in relation to stand-up comedy is like, it doesn't matter if it's funny. If you find it interesting, then that's what the audience is going to follow. They're going to be interested because you're interested, and that's always something that I took to the writing.
So next one, reserve seating movies. I do not remember. This is a movie that we covered apparently that I'm going to ask you to tell me
Okay,
about.
sure.
Al Pacino in The Humbling.
I remember it was directed by Barry Levinson. It
Okay.
co-starred Greta Gerwig, and I think she was like his assistant or something to that nature. The cover art I remember made it look like John Ritter in Skin Deep, where he was just like or 40 Days and 40 Nights, where he was like it was like a sex comedy, but I remember it being like just some kind of big like Brentwood drag type movie where it's yeah, I think that was one of the movies that like pushed me over the edge on like we don't have to do all Pacinos. On the same token of what you're talking about, and going back to the early days of reserve seating, I think we started at a really bad time
Mhm.
because it was the beginning of 2017, and this is like some of the movies that we covered in the first year. And looking back at this list, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
did we not need to spend our time on any of these? So the Flatliners remake. So keep in mind, like this isn't just like let's write over 3 days about this. This is like let's make time to go out to the theater
A
and see
movie.
these. The Flatliners remake, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, War Machine, King Arthur: Legend of the Sword, Slight, which I love that we did a spoiler review on Slight, Table 19, and my favorite. This is when you know, like maybe the column could have died like 6 years ago. Is we did Turner and Hooch versus K9. There's three things that I regret the most in terms of like reserve seating. One I almost don't regret because it's become like a good running joke is Patrick and I were both sick for the 2016 holiday show, which was White Christmas and Black Christmas.
Mhm.
And we just like really, I don't even know if I would say we phoned it in, but it just was an idea that we thought was going to be amazing. And then it just turned out to be a bear to get through. So that's one. A second one is JB, me and Patrick in the early days, we did a review on a podcast on Interstellar, and we were kind of hard on it, and I think over the top hard on it, and it was like less than an hour long,
Wow.
and that movie bears a longer conversation than like what have you seen lately, and then like also Interstellar conversation in under an hour.
I think that is a huge part of this process, which is like I will fully admit, like sometimes like so we just look at the process here. Like I go to a press screening on Tuesday night, right? I the movie comes out Friday, right? I have let's say 2 nights to write a review. I have a day job, I have a child, like all these things, and I'm like putting together. So I'm putting together thoughts in my head. I'm putting together things, and then I send the review out so it can run Friday morning, right? If I take a second look at some of those movies, if I take a third look at some of those movies, if I let those movies sit, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I would really change my mind about a lot of them. And so sometimes the pressure of just, and I just me specifically, and for you also for the times where you wrote about new releases, um, like it's pressure to not get it right, but come up with a coherent take with the sort of grace for yourself to say like, all right, look, my mind might change about this, so let me not go too far, let me not go over the top, let me not do like pull an Inception where it's like, I don't know, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, that movie bears a lot more conversation. So one of the things I've really tried to do, especially recently as I've kind of refined this, I think, and gotten better, is like really try to leave space when it comes to a review, where it's like if there's
Yeah.
something that's not working for you or something that's like thoughtful but maybe not totally accomplished. Like, let me try to leave a little room in my evaluation to be like, you know what, maybe I'll come back to this later. Maybe I can give this more a little time. Maybe this movie will sit with me. And my thoughts on it will change, which is kind of what we're doing now.
And then the one that I regret absolutely the most, this came in the second year that I was writing at this movie, was there's a column called Risky Business 10 Overrated Horror Movies.
Yeah.
And I wrote that in Scary Movie Month, and it's just kind of a party foul to write about horror movies sucking in Scary Movie Month because we're here to celebrate, but also that's early in my This Movie career where being catty and stuff like that I thought was something that I wanted to do more, just kind of to make an impression or maybe just to make people laugh, and it just kind of went the wrong way. So this column got 67 comments, almost all of them negative. Even my peers and friends were just like, "You're on your own on this one," kind of, which is fine. But I wrote, I'm just going to name the titles. I said we're overrated, and I'll mention if I think that they're still. The Cabin in the Woods, I don't think is overrated. I don't like it, but I don't think it's overrated. Alien, I like Alien. It's not overrated. The Ring, I don't really like it. I don't think it's overrated. The Omen, I've never even seen it, so I don't even know why I wrote that it was overrated. Fulci, it's not for me, but it's not overrated. Friday the 13th, the original, I don't love it. I have other entries in that series that I like a lot more, but it's not overrated. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which, wow, really am surprised Patrick ever asked me back.
Let that happen, yeah.
I like that movie more and more over the years. I even kind of liked it at the beginning when I saw it when I was a teenager, and it's absolutely not overrated. Nosferatu, it's not my favorite silent horror movie, but it's not overrated. It came out in 1922. What's to overrate? Zombieland, I don't think it's great, but it's not overrated. And Paranormal Activity, it's not overrated. It's fine. It's not my favorite found footage movie, but it's not overrated. If you like these movies, great. Enjoy them. Don't say things are overrated because then you regret stuff later. And this is the column that has hung over my head for 9 years. And every time I try to be positive on the site, is sort of in reaction to this. So I kind of think that I'm glad that I took a beating on it,
yeah,
early on, because it's something that I remembered and tried to avoid as much as I can in the years ensuing.
All right. I just want to throw this out there real quick. I recently said on a podcast with Patrick that I had never seen Machete.
Mm-hmm.
We did a reserve seating on Machete. All right, so the rest of my stuff I have in my notes is like more reference to columns that I've written. So I'm gonna throw these out to you, and I'm just gonna run them off real quick. All right, so movies I was too nice to in my reviews. Okay. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Okay. And my second one on here is, and you'll be happy to hear this, is Hobbs and Shaw. I was too nice to Hobbs and Shaw in my sort of semi-lukewarm positive review, but I still maintain that has been borne out by Fast 8, 9, and 10, which is essentially to say they shouldn't be doing the Fast movies anymore. If the universe is going to continue to exist, it should evolve into something different. That way, people like you and I who love the Brian and the Jesus Christ, Vin Diesel's character's name is Dominic Toretto. Boy, brain fried. Love the Brian and the Vin of it all. Can let it go. You know what I mean? I think that's what I was coming for in that review.
Yeah.
Okay, I was too mean to these movies in my review.
Okay.
Orphan First Kill, which is kind of cool. I like that movie. I've flicked through it a little bit on Max or whatever. Magic Mike's Last Dance came up to me. I wrote a review just, I guess, last year about Magic Mike's Last Dance. And it's not so much that I was mean to the movie, but that was definitely me coming at that movie from a place where I love XXL so much.
Yeah.
And I think XXL is such a really interesting movie about like masculinity and friendship that when he really pivoted to something totally different with Last Dance, I wasn't hearing it. And so I still don't like that movie, but revisiting it a couple weeks ago, I was kind of like, there's more here than maybe I gave it credit for. So a little bit of a kind of just a mea culpa on that one. Um, so Old, I don't like Old.
Okay.
I don't think it's good. But with the release of Knock at the Cabin, I feel like, and maybe this is also just because, as I've said recently, I'm in David Lynch world right now. Maybe I'm a little bit more appreciative of abstract and weird right now than I am sometimes. Like sometimes I'm much more about like, this movie doesn't function as a narrative and it's garbage and blah blah blah. And Old really threw me off because its tone is so strange and its pacing is so strange. It's still not a movie I like, but I do think that maybe my review didn't give it enough credit for some of the artistry that's going on there. The other one, and this goes back to reserve seating actually. The other one that I do have to that's kind of like your 10 overrated horror movies. My kind of the millstone hanging around my neck was when we did our Brawl in Cell Block 99 review. Which is still not a movie I like. I still think that's a bad movie. I got a very basic part of the narrative wrong. I said something in my criticism that was completely off base because I did not acknowledge. I was ignoring a key scene in the movie. I had just forgotten it, and in the pace of in the process of writing the review, I didn't reflect on it, and I just missed it. And so I got some flack for that, and I totally deserved it. I still don't think that's a good movie. I still don't like it, but my criticism was off base at that point because I was neglecting one very key character moment that just slipped my mind, and it wasn't intentional. It just literally slipped my mind. So in that case, I was being a bad critic, and I didn't give the movie enough credit. All right, movies I apparently reviewed.
Okay.
I do not remember seeing. I do not remember anything about these movies. I don't want to know if you can, with rapid fire, if you can tell me anything. We're going to quick.
Okay.
All right. Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, which I apparently talked about on television. The 355.
Oh, yeah. I made fun of that a lot. Like, before it came out, I wrote a song that had the 355 as a joke in it. That's the Penelope Cruz, Jessica Chastain, spy movie. Yeah.
I used to go here.
Yeah, I wrote a song about that too. Gillian Jacobs, and Jermaine Clement. I like that movie actually, but that was like a pandemic movie, right?
Yeah. Bob Saget in Benjamin, a Redbox original.
No, I don't remember that one.
Where is Kira? Which apparently in my review I wrote about as being an amazing movie that was going to be one of my favorites of the year. I remember nothing about this movie.
What year was this?
That's 2018, I think.
And it did not end up on your top 10 or honorable mentions.
I have no recollection of this film whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Where's Kira.
The Humanity Bureau.
It sounds like something you would review, but no, I don't remember that one. Is it a Liam Neeson?
It's a Nick Cage.
Okay.
Gold.
McConaughey. Yeah, I just remember like the title and the poster. That's it.
November Criminals. And then last one, Submergence. Submergence is Alicia Vikander and James McAvoy.
Oh no, I got it way off.
No idea.
This was fun. Thanks for this trip down memory lane, Rob. We should do this more often, maybe every few years. Revisit some of their stuff. I felt kind of egotistical when I came up with this idea and I was going through the reserve seating reviews, and I'm just like, I wouldn't change anything about any of these reviews. But a lot of it has to do with that was the last time I ever saw these movies, so I haven't had the opportunity to change my mind. But we will be back next week with a Scary Movie Month preview. So we'll talk about movies that we're looking forward to watching for the first time, how we're getting into the season, and maybe previewing some of the stuff that we have coming in our writing and in our podcast over the next month. So until next time.
These seats are reserved. Let's do it at the same time.
These seats are reserved. Until next time.
Oh, shit, it's hard to do.
Okay. 1, 2.